Good morning, everybody. Jason Wydro here, U.S. resident, Oregon citizen. I am not a doctor. I am not an official in any way, shape, or form. The reason I'm creating this video is from the perspective of a business owner, family, etc., American U.S. citizen. If you've been following the news lately, you are well aware that there has been a lot of discussion and action being taken related to this coronavirus. I am a person that likes to research and understand things as best as possible to my capacity based on my experience, knowledge, etc. So I went ahead and spent some time really digging into coronavirus. And I personally believe that it's important when dealing with any subject or anything that I have a basic understanding of it in the most fundamental way, meaning at a most basic level. So I went on to dictionary.com. I found out of many websites I visited and researched, this was one of the best information sources I could find. It's understandable why these medical terms can be so confusing is because they are highly technical. Just like the field of computers, there are tons and tons and tons of specialized terminology that scientists use to describe specific types of diseases, infections, and all of that. Again, I am not a doctor. I am not an official in any way, shape, or form. I'm an average U.S. citizen reading, doing some research, and educating myself. So let's take a look at that explanation that I found on dictionary.com. So on February 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization officially named this novel coronavirus. Novel basically just means it's new. And according to this, COVID, which is COVID, is short for coronavirus disease. The number 19 refers to the fact that the disease was first detected in 2019, though the outbreak occurred in 2020. And to get a little more technical about this, so it says the technical name of the virus that causes COVID-19 is severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2. And this is very interesting to me. It's abbreviated as SARS CoV-2. So SARS is at the S in severe, A in acute, as in harsh, coming on harsh. Respiratory, the R, having to do obviously with the lungs, things like that. Syndrome. So it's a type of disease, is my understanding. And then the coronavirus 2. So this 2 designation represents something related to a sequence of events or something within this virus, I would assume. So COVID, which we know is coronavirus from the year 2019, is genetically related to, but not the same as, the virus that led to the SARS outbreak in 2003. And goes on to say here, SARS is deadlier than COVID-19, but less infectious. So I find this data very interesting and helpful because sometimes, we see, a virus name or something, and we kind of go, what is, we're not all doctors. We didn't go to school for 8 years to learn the science behind the naming conventions for diseases and infections, etc. But fundamentally, I think it's important that we have a basic understanding of what this virus represents. So the next thing that I'm going to show you is a graph. It's very interesting because the last point on this was about the infectiousness of coronavirus. In my research that I've done, I've found that that seems to be the biggest point of the virus is how infectious it is and how it affects specific age groups and those with specific conditions, specific body conditions existing. In addition to that, there's a lot of unknowns because it is a new virus, right? It's novel, new. We don't know exactly how certain body types and different types of diseases or anything that pre-existing condition that someone might have, how necessarily they're going to respond to it. Now, this video that I'm going to show you is provided by the CDC, and basically it shows the infection rate versus other major viruses, etc., that have happened over the years to do a comparison. And going back to that earlier explanation that we looked at, we can see that, again, the SARS is deadlier than COVID-19, which is our coronavirus, but less infectious, and infectious we know is that ability to be transferred and moved from body to body, person to person per se. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this video. And as we're watching here, the coronavirus is obviously this color. And the days are up here. We can see the days, right? Okay, so this is, my understanding, this is the infectiousness point. The deadliness is less than the SARS, which we know based on that earlier information that we looked at here. But the infectiousness of it and the potential of it to spread obviously is way above and beyond, swine flu, SARS, Ebola, MERS, these other diseases that have come along over the years. So in my understanding, this is why there is such a scare about it and concern about it. The two main points being there isn't a lot of data and history about the specific disease. There isn't a known solution per se, with exception to everything laid out by the CDC, basic things like washing your hands, as provided by the CDC here, keeping the workplace safe, keeping the school safe, good hygiene, rearranging large activities and gathering, handling food, stay home, if you're feeling sick. These are all the kind of things that are, one could say, common sense, but again, it's important to have some guideline and outline that we can use and apply. In my personal opinion, I do believe this information is good because obviously we don't want it to spread. We particularly don't want individuals who are susceptible to the illness in a deadly and a fatal way to contract it. And ideally, we just squash it so that it doesn't spread, it's gone, done, and we don't have to deal with it anymore. None of us. In the state of Oregon, where I live, the last night on March 12th, the governor made a statement, basically shut down schools for 2 weeks in an escalating effort to contain the coronavirus. Excuse me, I'm reading this as I'm talking, so was a little slow to look over to the screen here. So, this has mixed reactions from parents, students, etc. And my view on this is, as long as the kids who aren't going to school stay home or have minimal outdoor activity gatherings, etc., then I don't see a problem with this. It also happens to be the month of spring break, so there was already a week or so that was going to be missed in this month. So one of the important points of coronavirus is who's at risk. For example, we have some family members that are in an older age range and have some basic existing conditions. And we're basically saying, hey, if you need anything from us, we'll bring it to you. Please just stay inside. And even in that, us bringing things to them, there is a potential that the disease can be spread. So we have to take some measures to make sure that we're following the basic, hygiene, cleaning our hands, using whatever types of cleaners on the packaging, just making sure everything's really clean. And in our great community here, there are people that are doing deliveries and helping anyone that's at risk that doesn't have help with similar type deliveries. And for food, hydration, etc., and anything that might be needed for those individuals. So that's a really cool local thing that's happening up here. So again, on the CDC website, who is higher at risk? We see older adults, people who have serious chronic medical conditions like heart disease, diabetes, lung disease. And again, if we go back to that earlier explanation, we know that this is COVID-19, COVID, coronavirus disease, the year 2019. It is abbreviated as SARS, which is severe acute respiratory syndrome. So we know that this is a respiratory, as stated on the CDC website. I'm going to jump back there. Heart disease, diabetes, lung disease, so there's this lung and heart very specifically in the respiratory areas. Again, I'm not a doctor. I am not making official statements. I am a citizen doing some research and sharing information for whoever this might be even a little bit helpful to. I found this really neat infographic provided by the Cresskill Fire Department, which is in Cresskill, New Jersey. I did find, by the way, a lot of really valuable information online. I just like the way that this was presented. It was really easy for us non-doctors, non-scientists to understand. And I'm going to go ahead and share a link to this in the video post that I did here, so you have it. But just wanted to look at a couple of the comparisons here. So the COVID-19, which is our COVID-19, fever, cough, shortness of breath, and then flu. So we're comparing them. Somebody also made a really great comment over here, which we're very aware of in the Northwest. We have allergy season, spring bloom, and all that occurring all at the same time. Many of the symptoms, obviously, because I am one of those individuals, are, of spring, all the pollen and everything that's starting to come into the air, is a lot of these symptoms, cough, shortness of breath, sneezing, all these different things can start to happen. So you can see how the timing of this creates a bit of confusion for general public too on the symptoms. But I do think it's very important to keep in mind, these very specific symptoms that are indicators of this. And then knowing the difference of your typical flu. And of course, knowing if you have any reactions to seasonal allergies, it's important to, if you know the differences, that's helpful. But of course, in some cases, you're not going to know the differences. Some people might not know the differences. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a citizen who's reading, researching, and trying to find an understanding for myself of this coronavirus. But down here is a very interesting point. Again, the age range that is affected, we can see as we get into the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80 plus, 90s area, we're getting exponentially, this is increasing in terms of death rate, being fatal. And then back to the CDC website, watch for symptoms and emergency warning signs, difficulty breathing or shortness of breath, persistent pain or pressure in the chest, new confusion or inability to arouse, bluish lips or face. Obviously, some of these are pretty severe, particularly, being blue lips or face and confusions coming in, things like that. And they give some instructions on what to do down here. So again, this is cdc.gov. This is not my textual content. I did not write this. I'm just reading from the website and sharing it with you. So there's a lot of really great tips on this website, just basic tips. And a lot of this is, things people do on an everyday basis is pretty normal, but obviously taking some extra precautions, In my opinion, I go back to my original thought on this is that I think it's a type of thing that because it's new, no one really knows about it, just like the previous viruses we've had over the years have caused somewhat of a hysteria and concern and fear. And I personally believe sometimes that's fully justified, and it's important to be alert and be aware and know what's going on. Again, even though I'm not a trained doctor, I'm not trained in the medical sciences, there is a lot of really great information out there that's factual, such as what I'm reading on the CDC website. That is good information. And, there's infographics out there and data charts and things that really can give the average citizen just some information to look at and make good decisions for themselves, for their family, for their neighborhood, for their community and group, town, city, state, whatever level you're at. But I think the best ultimate solution, my personal opinion, is that following these guidelines, keeping distance from others. If you don't have to go out, don't go out. If you don't absolutely need to shake someone's hand, don't shake someone's hand and do an elbow bump, these other things. Just minimize contact, personal contact, until we've come to a point where we know that this thing is on a decline. It's going in the opposite direction. Because the fact is, there's a lot of scare out there on the very point that it's lingering. Many Americans have been exposed to it and aren't showing symptoms yet. This is kind of the general of what's being thought of right now. And I found mixed information on the incubation period, which is, my understanding, the period of time that the disease is sitting in your body without manifesting any conditions, meaning you're not getting any symptoms, but it's considered asymptomatic, which means that it can be transferable, again, without having any conditions. So technically, I could have it right now, and I sound great, not coughing, not feeling sick, no fever, nothing, and I'm talking to a bunch of people, going to meetings, doing all kinds of things. And I've just passed it on to 10, 20, 30 other people. And I think that's just what, our governor's trying to do, what the country and federal level is trying to do, what the state, basically every state governor and mayors and different city officials are trying to contain, regulate, and just keep this thing to a minimum, which I personally believe is the best we can do. Just, again, my personal opinion. So I think the takeaways for me on this, and the research that I've done is if you know somebody that could be very vulnerable, susceptible to this, try to find a way to help them. Obviously, not putting yourself at risk or in danger, just trying to help somebody as you would help a friend or a neighbor. Try not, if all possible, to be alarming about it, meaning it doesn't help when I'm a business owner. I've worked on all types of projects over the years. I'm a volunteer. I've worked in many different scenarios in my life. I've seen many things. And having a strategic, organized approach to a problem is going to ensure that it's most simply resolved. Meaning that you sit down and say, okay, what do I need? How am I going to get that? For example, if I need water, how am I going to get water? You know, we need extra food. How am I going to have food? How would we be able to stay in the house for a week if we had to? What would I need to get to do that? What friends and family do I have that I can coordinate with and strategize with and come up with a plan? Anyhow, I don't want to get into a whole lecture on, you know, prepping and things like that. But the point is that try to negotiate with the situation, look at the information, look at the facts, do your own research, and come to and try not to make anyone feel fearful or afraid, because that's going to cause things to escalate, and it's going to be harder for everyone else in the community, in the town, and even a household and a home to get things more organized in a way that everyone's going to come out better in the end. And again, this applies to sports teams, businesses. You know, any coach would say we need to sit down and come up with a plan, not frantically worried and making a fearful situation out of if you're going to win the game or not. That tends to take away confidence and certainty of the team members, you know. So just try not to spread fear if you don't have to. And simply stay informed, you know, follow up, find out what's happening, find out if there's any new symptoms or conditions. You know, just the CD website has, you can see the link up here, Coronavirus/2019 dash, you know, you can see the whole link up here. And I'll go ahead and share that so you have a link directly to this page too. Hey, thanks for taking the time to watch my video. Again, I don't normally do things like this. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an official. I'm just a citizen, a business owner living in the state of Oregon and doing some homework and study through various, what I believe to be reliable online sources, just to get the straight factual data about this coronavirus. So thanks for watching and best of luck to you. Take care of yourself.